Princess Nwosu will introduce first. She's a Microsoft social lead working to drive social engagement around Microsoft 365 products. She's going to share her perspective on social. Thanks, Princess.
Well, I'm excited to be here. First, let me shout out all of you that are a part of this incredible ambassador program. I was telling Christian that when I was in college many moons ago, I would have loved to be a part of something like this. So when he asked me to speak, I was like, I'm game. So Christian, I know you have my slides. Are you
I
able to
do.
share on your side?
Yeah, let me work on bringing those up while you keep talking.
Cool. So while he's getting that situated, and I think for all of you that are in college, kind of get used to this where you have to improv, as they mentioned earlier, when you have to present. That's always when the platform you're presenting on wants to lag. So that's just a little professional tip for you all
Love
to
it.
into your professional life in the future. But a little bit about me for the last 13 years, well, going on 14 now, I've had the pleasure of working for the internet, AKA working in social. So what that means is that my day to day is being across all of these different platforms and finding out different ways to help the brands that I represent at whichever time in my career I've been at them to thrive and really connect with the audience online. I am a first generation Nigerian American. So I see a lot of the different names in the chat here. So when I was in college, my major was definitely pre med. And then I had to figure out a way to tell my parents that, I no longer wanted to do that and that marketing was my thing. And you can imagine 13 years ago, working in social was not a real thing. But I have made my way and here I am today. So I am Princess Nwosu. We could go to the next slide there, Christian. The brands that I have had the pleasure of working for has been Tiffany's, Lancome, United Airlines, Marriott, Campbell's, IKEA, and of course Microsoft now. Um, a lot of people's favorite brands. I have been the voice behind the accounts or some of the posts that you've seen on there. So yes, putting a face to the accounts here today. Next slide, please. So, what does a social media professional do? AKA, how do you work for the internet? Well, next slide. We behave like people. It's really simple, right? Like the essence of working in social is being social. I think sometimes as marketers, it gets overcomplicated when really we're on these platforms to just connect with people, not to force products on them, but rather to make people fall in love. Next slide. So yes, that's why I have a heart there. Another part of my job is to spread love, because as Biggie Smalls once said, it is the Brooklyn way. I put that in there because I am also from New York, so I always have to dash a little bit of my personality there. Lizzo also gave a wonderful quote where she said, "If you don't love all of me, you what? Because if you love me, you love all of me." Or none at all. So, what my job essentially is to make people who are online, our fans and our friends, fall in love with the brand. So, where do we do this? Next slide. The platforms that we show up on. So, for Microsoft, as Christian mentioned, I lead social media strategy for M365. So, think all things Word, Excel, PowerPoint. My team, we're Windows is part of our team, Surface. We're on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Be Real, Twitter, Pinterest. We're across all social that makes sense. And it was mentioned earlier by Mike. When I think about social and how we present ourselves in social, I think about it in a way that every platform has its own identity. I bring a specific identity to the platform. So, how we show up as Microsoft 365, that is a shameless plug for you all to follow our Twitter account. On the Microsoft 365 account, we show up completely different than how we would on Instagram, which is very different than how we show up on Twitter. And that's just because people on the different platforms want to engage with content in different ways. So we like to lean in to the reality of those platforms and show up however the people, want to see us. Next slide. So here is how we do that. Next slide, please. You'll see some examples of some of our content out in the wild, like I like to say. So this first post here, and I'm not sure if Christian will share this with you all later, but we worked with a creator. Her name is Emily Zuge. So for those of you who are on TikTok, you may have seen her stuff. Emily Zuge, she likes to recreate the logos of different brands. And Microsoft Windows was one of the brands that she decided to redesign. It was hilarious. We worked with our short form video agency to create this post with her, and it blew up. I think at this point now, I think it's about 6 million views on this alone. And then there are different examples of the kind of content that we share there. It's quite unexpected from what you would think about from a tech company. But again, my joy is to show those who are on TikTok, which you all have been marked as Gen Z, how the old school grandpa, which is Microsoft, can show up as relatable and fun. So we lean into the nature of the platform. We work a lot with different creators and allow the creators to tell the story on behalf of us, Microsoft. So I know someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Jesus, who said that he is also a creator and interested in growing and growth. Honestly, creators are really the bread and butter for brands now. I think that the best way for brands to really communicate with their audience or to even expand their audience is to allow the creators to do the talking. So we lean into that a lot. Next slide, please. Another example was on our M365 account. We all saw this bee that was, buzzing around on our TikTok feed, and, leaning into what the platform is about. So for M365, we're all familiar with Outlook, which is one of our products. So my team sat together and we said, how can we merge TikTok and this trending sound with our product Truth? Well, this bee TikTok post actually is our top performer. And the text just said blocking time on my Outlook calendar for my daily nap and midday shower. And if you remember exactly, the trending sound there is from, I think it was Austin Powers, where it's like, no one will ever know. And that just, it just did well on social. So again, like we lean into the nature of the platform. What is trending? What are people talking about? And how can we, in a non-forceful way, be a part of that conversation? So when you have free time, follow our Microsoft 365 and Windows social accounts on TikTok, and I'm sure you'll have a laugh. Next slide. TikTok AR filters. So we created something called the Heads of Microsoft. And this was to personify all of the different apps that are part of M365. Word, PowerPoint, Excel, OneDrive. And we sat as a team and said, what would it be like if, these products were actually people? So when you have a chance, you'll be able to check that out as well. Next slide. Again, these are just some more examples of creators that we've worked with and what some of the views are like. We work with micro influencers, major influencers, really with creators who know how to talk to their audience and can, talk about our products in a way that's not forceful and just fun for the platform. Next slide. So here's how we transform productivity into our finest hours, and really just talking again about those different products related to M365. So our team came up with this, Heads of Microsoft, Excel sheet face, leaning into playfulness of TikTok. And this has been a top performer for us. Next slide. Another thing we like to focus on is definitely inclusion. And when we think about inclusion at Microsoft, it's not just about race. We also think about inclusion as it relates to abilities. So as we know, Microsoft is one of the companies that really spearheads having products that are made for people who have all kinds of different disabilities to still be able to utilize the product. So one thing we do every winter has been something called Windows Ugly Sweater. We all know around December is the ugly sweater. So we teamed up with a nonprofit called the Able Gamers, and people are able to go into the Microsoft store and buy these ugly sweaters. There's a limited amount, and all of the proceeds there go to the charity of our choice. So that's been a lot of fun to bring innovation to inclusivity. And on the last slide here, and all of that work that you've seen and I've talked about, sometimes we see incredible success. So we've been fortunate enough to be mentioned in Ad Age and Ad Week and different publications just about what, as a brand, we're doing on TikTok and what we're doing with Reels and now what we're going to experience with Be Real. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel. I mean, working in social and working for the internet is definitely a lot of fun. It's a job that I never expected. Some days I'm talking to creators to pitch, kind of different ideas for what they can do for campaigns. Other days I'm going to VidCon to go meet with Mr. Beast and, potentially work on a campaign with him. Some days I'm ideating with, the TikTok team on what's coming out, what's new. Other days, I'm kind of in the thick of it, just responding and talking to our friends and fans online. So yes, please feel free to ask me any questions you have or connect with me. I love working in social, and hopefully, if that's a career choice for you, you will too.
Thank you so much, Princess. I love that idea of working for the internet. It seems like you've been doing a good job of it for a number of years. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing your experience and all the awesome campaigns you've been driving for Microsoft. Any questions? Let's see, someone's raised their hand. Jump right in. Teresa Marie.
Hi. So, no, yeah. My question was, when you're putting something out there for social media and you see that it's not working, what's the best way to try and combat that?
So with social, everything is test and learn. I never say that a campaign didn't work. I just see it as learnings, right? Like failure really is research for me, right? So like if a campaign doesn't perform, I just chalk it up to being research because you only learn on these platforms when you try different things. When we first got started on TikTok, for example, with the M365 account, Microsoft 365, we tried some things that honestly was a flop. And then we said, okay, let's like kind of look at what the nature of the platform is, which is where I said we bring an identity to each platform. We use some different trending sounds and said, okay, maybe let's work with trending sounds as opposed to creating our own content. Let's work with creators and let them storytell as opposed to, Princess sitting there and, being the person sharing the video. So a lot of like just testing and learning has definitely been where we see the most success. So yes, it's not a failure. It's not that a campaign was not successful. Just chalk it up to research.
Love that. Yes. To succeed, we must fail, and expect a lot of that in any career discipline you take, including social, and would love hearing the success and failure stories from all ambassadors as they try to go out on their campuses and find interesting use cases for building campus communities on GroupMe.